Hi there, my name's Scott, and today I'm going to walk you through how to do a Vlookup within Google Sheets. First off, I'll explain to you the data that we're using. So as you can see in this table, we've got companies with their respective share prices, their EPS, 52-week range, and market cap, all taken from Yahoo Finance on January 9th, 2021. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to leverage this data to use a Vlookup and move it into the following table below, which, as you can see, it's not in the same order of company. So let's begin. First, when performing a Vlookup, you want to type in the function, so equals Vlookup. Then we want to select our search key. In this case, we'll use A9 or Apple to search against our table above, and this will be our range. So we'll select A1 to E4. Next up, what we want to do is we want to actually freeze these metrics so that if we drag and drop our formulas, we won't have bad data. Following this, we can select our index. This is essentially the column where we want to pull our data from. In this case, we want market cap, which is column E, and that's equivalent to column 5. So I'm going to type that in. Lastly, we can select our ordering. In this case, we want to select false, which means no ordering. And to do that, we can either type in false or we could type in 0. Once that's complete, we'll click enter and move on. So here, let's just confirm. So we have company Apple and market cap of 2.222 trillion, which is the same as Apple with their market cap of 2.2 trillion. So now that that's complete, we can actually drag our formula down. And as we can see, Tesla's market cap of 834 billion is equal to the one in the table above, similar with Microsoft, which is also correct. So now let's redo this formula for the other options and get that data in. So we'll do our Vlookup. We'll select, again, A9 for Apple. We'll also go ahead and select our range, which is still the same. And we also still want to hard code that. Following this, we'll select, in this case, 4 for column D, and again, 0. Once we're done, click enter, and we can again drag and drop. So confirming Tesla 70.1, Tesla 70.1, again, we're still good. To speed up this process, we can also change the way that we input the data. We can use, since it's not changing, we could use our formula, copy and paste, and move forward accordingly. So here, I'll paste my Vlookup. In this case, I want share price, which is column 2, and I'll enter 0 for false. And again, for EPS, I'll copy and paste. EPS is column 3. I'll add my 0. And then we can drag and drop these ranges simultaneously. So that's it for a Vlookup. However, I'm going to show one more way to do a Vlookup when we're pulling information from one sheet to another. So in this case, instead of looking at this table that we've created here, we're going to look at this new sheet example. We want to find the same information and pull it from one sheet to another. So here, we're limiting the amount of data that we want to pull. We just want stock price and weekly range. We've also added in companies that are not part of our list to see what happens. For our stock price, for Apple, we're going to use the same process. So we're going to equal Vlookup. We're going to select Apple, so A2 in this case. But now what we're going to do to select our range is we're going to actually move to the other sheet and select it. As you can see, it inputs the sheet name first and then the range so that you know where the data is coming from. Same as before, we want to hard code that data. So $, $, or F4 if you have that on your keyboard. Then additionally, we'll be able to select our stock price, which we know is column 2, and 0 for false. Great, we've run into an error. So now we can determine what's wrong. Here, we're seeing this error, and we need to figure out why that is. So I'll look through and see, is there something with spacing? Yes. So here, we have a space between Apple and the ending of the cell. So we can either fix that here, or we could go back and add a space. And as you can see, the data comes properly. Moving forward, we can drag and drop and see if we get any more errors. So the good news is that we got Microsoft and Tesla, which were in our other table. However, the two companies that we didn't have values for are providing us with this NA error. So we have two options right now. We can either add the information here as a new row or column, or since we don't have that data on hand, we're going to hide this error. In order to do that, we're going to modify our formula. So instead of it being just a VLOOKUP, we're going to add a little snippet of code in front of this that says if NA, comma. So here, what it's doing is it's performing this VLOOKUP still, but after the comma, we're going to enter what we want it to say instead. So in this case, I'm going to write not enough data. And as you can see, once I drag this down, we now get a not enough data message instead of the NA. Similarly, we'll do this again. So we'll run you through the same process for our weekly range. So here, I'm going to do a VLOOKUP. I'm going to select Apple. I'm going to select my range for my table. Again, I will add my $signs. In this case, we're looking for the weekly range, which is column D, so column 4. And again, we'll select 0. And as mentioned, we're going to add an IFNA snippet of text in front, and then we're going to say no 52-week range. And after dragging this down, you can see that the information is populated correctly. What we've done is we've essentially done a VLOOKUP. We've done a VLOOKUP on 2 separate spreadsheets. And we've also shown what you can do if you run into an error along the way. 3 things to look out for, as one of them you saw, is spacing. If the text itself is not exactly identical, you will receive an error. So that is one mistake that a lot of people make when creating VLOOKUPs. Another one is the order of your columns. You always want to make sure that when you're doing a VLOOKUP, the data or the search key is always your first row. If it's to the right of information that you want to search for, your VLOOKUP will not work. So that's very important. You always want your search key to be your farmost left column. And anything before it, let's say we put this column company in front of stock price, it wouldn't work. And lastly, you just want to make sure that when you're selecting your index or your column, that it's the correct one. This is an area where I see a lot of people make silly mistakes. So be careful when you're selecting that you either count it out or even add a formula above where you can either type out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order to make that process of selecting the correct column easier. Here, we're dealing with a limited amount of data, but let's say you have 40 or 50 columns. It's easier to do it in a way where it's formulaic. But that's it for today. Here, we've gone over that data. If you found this helpful, I'd appreciate you liking the video or subscribing. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. Thanks.